Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a virtually connecting session on a missed conversation around OLC Innovate. I want to welcome everybody to our session. Oh, we have somebody coming in last minute too. I'll admit Clarissa. Clarissa, we just went live, just so that you know. We'll be going around and doing introductions to start everything out. We have a little go around here, and my prompt for everybody, since this is an OLC missed conversation, my provocation is that with an event as big as OLC, no matter how involved you are, you wouldn't be able to do everything. So what part of the conference were you not able to take a part in that you really wish that you could have? And I will open that up to the floor, starting with Regina.
Thank you, Autumn, and hello, everyone. My name is Regina. I am from Michigan State. I have a lot of peeps here from MSU. This is my first time attending OLC Innovate, and what a first time, right? And I'd like to thank my friends Jess and Kate for hooking me up with OLC, and so I am also a presenter. So presenter, first time attendee, first time online conference. So to your question about what I missed a lot because I wasn't able to even go to Maddie's, what was that? The escape room and design studio, which I really wanted. Because believe it or not, that 2 week that OLC Innovate started, I had 2 conferences too online. So the OTN Summit and also another conference that I had to present. So I made the most of the time. So I attended Maha and Martin and Terry, and I popped in some sessions too, but I wish I could have gone to more. So, and that connection too, like, cause it was gonna be in Chicago, and it's like, Chicago is just like, yeah, I'm here in Michigan. So, that I missed, like meeting new people, meeting new friends, connections. Yeah, but I was really impressed with the level of engagement. So it's really the community, the connection, the conversation that I really appreciate with the online conference. So yeah.
Am I just supposed to go? Autumn gave us explicit instructions and I half listened because, hi, I'm Jess Knott from Michigan State. That's what I do. But I am an island owner in Animal Crossing, a very important civic video game in which I do important things like fish and build botanical gardens. Anyway, hi. I am the interim senior manager for instructional technology and development, I think, at Michigan State University, which means I'm helping build an instructional design team to support people like Regina and Kate and Maddie and all of these fabulous other Spartans. And OLC Innovate is my favorite thing ever. And it just was really hard this year because it was going to be in Chicago. I didn't have as much time to engage as I would have liked to, but I was really, really happy that I got the opportunity to speak and also moderate some session. So I did feel connected. I think the biggest thing I missed was just running into people in the hallway. There were real benefits and trade-offs. So like I got to spend some real quality time with Maha in ways that I haven't been able to in past conferences, you know, because of travel. And so there were more purposeful ways to intersect with people that I really love hanging out with that I don't always get a chance to. But I didn't just get to pop around a corner and see Angela and all my favorites and then, you know, be like, ah! so I also found that every time I was in a room with Angela talking about anything, I was like, she's in Arizona and I'm stuck in my house in Michigan. So I think I miss the people. Like OLC Innovate to me has always been about the people. Everyone on this call, with the exception of Regina, I think I met at Innovate or some OLC event. Actually, Maddie, I met you at a tailgate. You don't count. But so I got to hang out with the people and it was very meaningful. And I mean, just the whole event was stellar. But I did miss those accidental, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And for an introvert who is exhausted by people, that's really big. It's big to say.
It's me now, right? Okay,
Yes, go.
thank you. Hi, I'm Terry Green. I am an e-learning designer at Trent University and Trent Online. They never told me what the E stands for, though. I think it might be extreme or electronic learning. I don't know, but we try. I've been there a month now. And somehow I'm the the second longest serving of the 5 of us, because 3 more have come since I started. So it's a big changing team, which is it's very interesting. But that's the reason why my answer to the question of what did you miss at OLC Innovate is a lot. I watched Maha's keynote, which was fabulous, and I had a session myself. And emerging, that's good, Rissa. E is for emerging. So that's all I got to attend. And what I really missed was an opportunity that I was meant to have to do OLC Live with Jonathan Lashley. We were meant to do that, and we couldn't follow through because of changes in our lives. And I think OLC, you guys actually probably dodged a bullet, because you did it far better than we would have. Anyway, you did it great. It looked fabulous. But I was really looking forward to hanging out with Jonathan and talking with anybody involved in OLC and learning about all the work that went into it. In the time before, when we were still thinking we were going to Chicago, we got the chance to chat with some of the people that were meant to speak at in Chicago, Flower, Darby, and so I did get the chance to connect with people. I actually I wasn't sure how it all worked out with the changes in the keynotes. What happened? Did Flower did end up giving a talk at one point, right?
She gave a fireside chat.
Oh,
but
nice.
what we did was, sorry, I'm a disembodied voice that has not been introduced that is going to give context. We ended up moving the folks that we had agreed to give a face-to-face talk and in a certain context to the fall and to the spring, because we wanted to give them choice, since they had really signed up for one experience, and they all went for it because everybody was incredibly busy. And we said, this is a unique opportunity for us to bring in voices that are really loud and clear and beautiful, that we need to hear in this moment. And that's why we went with the keynotes that we had for Innovate. And of course, Flower said, I want to do the event in the fall, but can I also have a presence at in the summer as opposed to spring? And
that's awesome.
we were really delighted to have that. So, and Rajiv was there too. So I mean, we had a lot of connections and probably threads that we wouldn't have had otherwise, connecting all of the experiences.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I missed that opportunity. I hope Jonathan and I can jump back on it at some point and give that a whirl, because I was looking forward to that.
Okay, I think it's my turn. I'm Maha Bailey. I'm at the American University in Cairo here in Egypt. And I'm also the co-director of Virtually Connecting. And the thing that I missed is actually the reason we founded Virtually Connecting in the first place. So I've been attending OLC Innovate virtually for years. And the reason we founded Virtually Connecting is that this one year I really, really, really wanted to go because I had so many friends going there. And I realized that I was missing the hallway conversations and not the presenting part. Patrice and Jess were with me on the organizing committee that year. I think they saw the evolution of the thought process of how we thought, oh, I'm the unconference virtual committee co-chair. Let's make Virtually Connecting that. It was called ET4 Buddy at the time. And the thing is, this time, because the conference was fully online, it was a much better experience than any OLC Innovate I'd done before because I had access to everything. Obviously, I was also the keynote, so people knew who I was, so that helped a lot. Whenever I went into a space, I felt like really welcome, more than I think. I mean, people are usually nice, but you know what I mean. But also, yeah, everyone knows me anyway. Yeah. And I'm going to mention a special moment with Jess later. But I miss the intimacy of being able to meet with like 10 people like we are right now. That didn't happen at all. In the entire conference, I felt like there would be some sessions where there aren't a lot of people. No, the conference was so full, obviously because it's virtual, so everyone has nowhere else to be, so everybody is there. Even if they have busy schedules, they still make time. And I'm thankful that I can make a lot of time for it because it was in my afternoon. So I would have a full work day, and then I would have an OLC part of the day. And folks know I stayed up. My daughter had disrupted sleep patterns, so she would come sit on my lap and play bingo or whatever it was that Maddie had organized that day. And Maddie and Angela had so many fun things organized. So I had a lot of fun time, and it was very good for my well-being as well as my learning. But you know, the fact that the sessions ended abruptly and then you have to go to the next session and you couldn't even hang out to just chat for 5 or 10 minutes, the lingering part was missing for me so much. And I've been since then thinking about how do you integrate this informal social drop in and drop out hallway conversation type of space in virtual conferences. So thank you, Autumn, for helping organize today, because I really needed to be just with a few people and talk.
Absolutely.
Oh, and that special moment with Jess was when I walked into one of the late evening sessions and she's like, I'm going to put my drink away. Because everybody knows that in person I don't like that, and that I don't like to go to places called happy hour or whatever. And I was tweeting about this recently because so many people are talking about happy hour. I'm like, I don't feel welcome if you guys are gonna just explicitly call a space that. And I wouldn't have noticed what you were drinking, honestly. Jess, I'm not gonna go look at what everyone's doing, but you said explicitly that you've done that for me, and that was really special that you did that, so thank you.
So hi everyone, my name is Maddie Shugren. I'm the new director of online learning for the OLC. I think for me, yeah, woo woo, it's very exciting. But that new position actually is part of the, I suppose my answer for your question today, Autumn, is that I actually started the very first day of the conference, which was both strategic but also overwhelming and fun in important ways. I wanted to start that day. They had asked if I wanted to take the conference and start later, but I knew that based on what I would be doing with this position, that it was actually important for me to be there, be behind the scenes, and dive right in. And it was incredibly supported in doing that. But as a result, I think for me, in addition to what everyone else is saying, I absolutely love the people. I came to the OLC because Kate knew me at MSU and said, hey, I think you'd like this. Like, let's go. Let's do this together. And then met all these fabulous people there. And here I am now working for the organization. But nevertheless, there's that sense of which when you're working the event, and so many of us in this room have done programming for the event, there's not a lot of that same opportunities when I'm going to engage as a participant to actually sit back and actually digest all of the information. So for me, those 2 weeks were very much, I would be running to the bathroom if I had time, and then be texting myself like, oh, that was a good session. I need to earmark that so I can go back and watch that, because I didn't actually have time to take notes because I was running the slides, or something of that sort. And it was, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was, I was there for particular reasons. And of course, with a really specific lens this year. But to be able to go, just to go, I was approaching the conference differently. So that's something I missed, at least for me this time around, was going through the program and actually having that experience of thinking about what sessions I wanted to go to rather than going to them and then getting what I could out of them. And this year, of course, I was very much thinking about the sessions from a critical lens of what do we need to build on, what's working well. So a very, very, very different approach this year, but I absolutely missed, I think, just being an attendee, because that's something I've been able to do to a degree in previous years. And I'll also sneak in, because many of us were talking about it in the chat, that Kate Sonka's birthday happens to coincide with the conference, and we celebrate it routinely. So that was something that we all missed, was being able to celebrate with Kate. So.
Thanks, Maddie. Hey, everybody. I'm Kate Sonka. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic Technology in the College of Arts and Letters at Michigan State University. And I think people have done a great job of saying many of the things that I wanted to, specifically Chicago. I lived there for a long time. So like Regina said, like I actually miss the city itself, but of course, these sorts of connections. But one thing as I was reflecting on this question that Autumn asked us is, I actually miss the focus time of being in OLC Innovate space, like just mentally, because we're all working from home or wherever we might be. And so, and based on the nature of the work that I do and many of us do, our universities, our colleges, our institutions are leaning on us to do a lot of work to help prepare for fall and summer. We all know. And so I was often faced with, I want to go to this session, but I have to do this thing instead, support for faculty or whatever it was, which of course, that's my job. I need to do that. And so I really missed kind of like I was pulled out of my environment or being pulled out of my environment to be in a physical space with everybody, so that it's like, oh, sorry, I can't handle this right now. I'm here. I'm at this conference. I have to focus on it. So for me, it was kind of the physical space of being in the conference, if that makes sense. So that's what I missed.
It's so great to be here and see everyone. Patrice Presco, I'm the Associate Director, Learning Design, Technology, and Media at the Graduate School of Education. And unfortunately, I missed everything. I tried so hard to attend things, had them on my calendars. I think exactly what Kate was saying, I just could not, I just couldn't hold the time. And I did watch on social media and tried to follow some of the conversations, which was both great and made me miss everyone even more. So I was thrilled when I saw this posted, and I wanted to thank Maha for actually like reaching out and inviting me to join, because I think otherwise I probably would not have, because I would have figured, well, I won't be able to make it anyway. So I said that this is the thing that has brought me the most joy, I think, in months. I mean, like so many people here, we have just been working heads down what feels like 24/7. And I really miss everyone in the community. And so I'm just thrilled to have this moment together.
Hey, I'm Nate Angel, and I work at Hypothesis, the organization that makes annotation technology. And I am calling from beautiful sunny Portland, Oregon, where it's very early. I haven't used my voice very much, so I may sound a little froggy. I'm also talking a little bit quietly because there's still people asleep in my house. Shh. I was really involved in OLC Innovate this year, mostly around things having to do with the keynotes. And so I spent more time with OLC Innovate than I ever have before, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, but it also meant that because I was doing so many, like a lot of people here, so many kind of active, kind of more host kind of practices, I didn't really get to attend any of the regular things in a way that I might have, like a session or some of the social parts. And I missed that. But I think what I missed most of all was the opportunity to connect either with people that I don't know already or with people that I know, but I have only known virtually, and to finally meet them face to face, because there's so many of you here that I've known virtually first, and mostly like Ma, I've still never met face to face with her. So I definitely missed that. And I'm just going to point out that my screen is a little foggy, not because it's early morning here, but because the camera on my phone doesn't work very well. Yay, technology.
No apologies. I'm Angela Gunder. I'm the VP of Learning for the OLC. And before we started this call, Autumn, goodness gracious, talk about froggy voices. Autumn had said that we could push back on her question and be a bit provocative. And I always like to take the opportunity to twist and bend and make us think in different ways. So my simple answer, would I not be doing that, would be that I missed my usual practice of working on my Twitter game and live tweeting sessions and using that as a way that I code information, but also as a way to perhaps spark or highlight new connections that could happen, particularly for folks that don't have the luxury of participating in conferences actively and in a dedicated way that they would like to do. That was something that I started doing a couple of years ago, and I was really bad at Twitter. And it gave me a lot of hope, got rid of a little bit of imposter phenomenon that perhaps I had around Twitter. And based on the schedule, I had a similar schedule to Maddie, where I was just running sessions and talking and doing all of these sort of extrovert presenting things that didn't allow me the luxury to do maybe the more reflective and introspective, not introverted task of live tweeting. With regards to the question of what did I miss, I think that, all of my friends here on this call are totally right. But the challenge is that the question sort of has us thinking about translation. And it's tempting, right? Because we were planning a fully face-to-face conference in a location, we had dedicated time, we knew the affordances of that, and then the world blew up. And we had to shift and pivot and create this new thing. And I think if anything, if I were to reflect and say, what did I miss? I missed the opportunity for us to just sit in the unique affordances of the online modality and not think about, what do we do face-to-face that we couldn't do online? Forget that. Like, what should we be doing online for online's sake? And how can we make things and create things that we haven't thought of before, or that are not typically part of the quote unquote conference structure. And even, with all of the years that the many people on this call have been part of face-to-face conferences, the one thing I think we always talk about is, are we just perpetuating culture and that is not necessarily, in line with our culture that we want to represent? Are we just, kicking along the same can of how we've done things prior? I mean, even scheduling things so tightly, and then coming in and saying, like somebody like Maddie saying, I want to build escape rooms at a conference. Like, for a lot of people, they wouldn't have the space or even, the mindset to do something like that. But it comes from somewhere. So I would just challenge all of us to say, let's really think about, what can we be doing? And if we're missing anything, it should be things that are wholly new, wholly challenging, and will push us in new directions that will get us back to our culture and values, because there's always work to do there.
There's one thing just to say really quick that I felt deeply in my soul at Innovate, and I want to surface it, and Angela's gonna think this sucks, but I love it. And it was that I felt her in every part of that conference. And so what you guys don't know is that she is one of my BFFs, and I see her like 3 times a year, usually one trip to Tucson or Phoenix or wherever she lives, and then a couple of conferences. And so not being able to spend time in a room with her this year has been really challenging. And so, text is one thing, but like getting into Innovate and watching her push those boundaries and being in the room with her where she was presenting and just getting to experience that while we weren't sitting in the affordances of online, there was comfort in feeling my friends in an environment where I didn't expect that. I showed up like, okay, Kate and I are going to go do our talk and we're going to do this thing. But like Kate and I commented after the talk we did, like, oh my gosh, we feel so good now. Like it had been a minute since we felt that good. And so I love what Angela is saying, but I really need to say that one of the things that was done so well was that human aspect. Like, she will never believe when I say I felt it. And so A+, keep breaking the stuff, keep pushing all of those boundaries, but like legitimately the thing that I didn't miss at OLC Innovate was feeling my friends. I saw Maddie, I saw Keegan, you know, I saw the people, I got to see Maha, I got to be there. I even felt Autumn and, you know, just on Twitter, like in different ways, but I felt connected in a way I haven't felt in my house in a long time to the people I miss very deeply. So keep on thinking about those cultures, Angela, because it's working.
I know Rissa hasn't introduced herself yet, but I just want to riff off of that for a second. And to also say, Angela, I felt your presence in the entire design of the entire conference. I don't think it was better just because it was virtual and well thought out. I think it was better because you were involved in thinking it out. And I know a lot of the back end, you know, the back channel stuff of things you were doing behind the scenes that maybe nobody knows about. And so I really respect all the thoughts and the culture and values that you put into that. Because a lot of times people are thinking about the technicalities of how are we going to make it work, but you could tell that it was thought of with purpose. And that's really special, and it showed.
Thank you both for saying that. And I think if anything, this is a call to action for, and I know, I love that Maddie's on our team now. And, you know, I'm fairly new too. I only started in January, but every conversation that we have like this, where people are talking and are proffering ideas, she's writing them down frantically. Even jokes, you know, we've had several things that people just say sort of off the cuff, and, you know, she's jotting that down like, no, this is serious, and here's how we can build. So if anything, I'm thankful that we can get together and continue to amplify these pieces, because this is how we're going to change the paradigms that exist. And certainly, I just wanted to clue in on one thing that you said, Maha, that a lot of the conversations that we have are around technology when we're thinking about these things, and they're not about the interpersonal connections. They're not about the outcomes that we want to see or build. So as much as we can sit within this space, it's important for, you know, convenings like conferences, but it's also really important for something that Patrice just wrote in the chat of reimagining our teaching and learning practices. How are we doing this same thing in the classroom, and not starting with technology, but starting with, what do we want to make people feel? What do we want to allow people to do or help them to do? What do we want to support? So that's my little shout out to that suggestion and to the work that we're going to do from this conversation.
Everybody stop making me cry already. You are jerks and you are wonderful people. And let's stop feeling feelings. Okay, bye.
Aw, that's so nice. I'm going to go ahead and invite Rissa to introduce herself. And then Rissa, when you're done, you can just throw it back to me, because I actually didn't introduce myself. I realized I kicked things off, but I never actually, I do that all the time.
Do you want to just introduce yourself now since you got the floor?
No.
Okay. All right then. That sounds great. My name is Clarissa Sorensen Unruh, as my screen says, and I teach chemistry and statistics at Central New Mexico Community College. I have been part of Virtually Connecting, and I have not been to, nice. I love statistics too, Jess. Thanks. I had my first experience at an OLC. This time around. I have not been to one before. I have been kind of on the fringes of that conference and that group for a while because of my connections with Virtually Connecting and all you wonderful people. But I hadn't been part of it. And the real reason I came to the conference, if we're going to be bluntly honest about things, is I came because Maha needed a panelist to have a shining face. That was actually why I came. And so I'm like Patrice in that I had everything, like I downloaded the app. I had everything like scheduled out. I was like, this is going to be great. I had another conference at the same time that was a green chemistry conference that I knew I had to do as well. And I ended up like not doing basically either for the most part, not because I didn't want to, but because I am teaching right now. I'm teaching 4 classes, and those classes kind of blew up at that exact moment. And you would say it was 2 weeks long. How could it possibly blow up for 2 weeks? Yeah, teaching is one of those things, especially asynchronous. So I was wanting to be part of everything, and I was like part of nothing in the end, except for Maha's keynote. So I looked in from afar from Twitter and was like, hi, I really want to come. So I missed Terry's session. I had it scheduled. I even had your session, Terry, in my calendar, like not just on the app, but in my calendar, and I still missed it. I had like 4 notifications and I missed it. So like COVID brain and time are not working together for me right now. So that's what I got for you.
Thanks so much, Rosa. And the reason why I wanted to go last is because I have another kind of provocation for us to kind of, you know, kind of think about. Jess is like, So my name is Autumn Keynes. I'm an instructional designer in the, I'm an instructional designer at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And I actually, hey, Irene just joined us. I just want to welcome Irene for joining us to come in. We're just wrapping up introductions, Irene. So I will throw it over to you. Basically, what we're talking about is what we missed in the conference. So, you know, even though it's a big conference and even though it was online, so it's probably more accessible than it's ever been before, there's so much going on, so many different things. Was there something that you wanted to take part in that you weren't able to, either because of the move to online or because it was just so much going on? It's just time really doesn't allow us to do that. So I will just say that I actually didn't get to take in very much of the conference at all. I missed quite a bit. I've been particularly lamenting the breakout rooms or the escape rooms, because I do those with my family and in person and we love them. So I love the idea of a virtual breakout room or a virtual escape room. But Irene, are you there? Can you say hi to us and introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. I just couldn't log in. I think technology caught up with me.
Every time that happens.
But I'm here. I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you want to introduce yourself real quick? And were you able to take in any part of the conference?
No, I was not actually. I think I missed out on a few things because we had a facilitating online course that was running and it had very many people this time around. So we were quite busy. But yeah, my name is Irene. For those I've not met before, I'm from Kenya and I am a member of Emerge Africa. I'm also an online facilitator and, you know, I do a lot of things online. So yeah, and a member of this wonderful group. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you were able to get everything worked out and join us at the end here. It's always a treat when you're able to jump in on these. So my next kind of thing that I've been thinking about, you know, because I'm thinking about like the nature of these missed conversations and kind of the nature of virtually connecting when it comes to a virtual conference. And one of the things that I think a missed conversation allows us to do is it also allows us to reflect after some time on the things that we were able to do. And so I actually wanted to ask Meha, now that it's all over with, now that you've done the keynote as well as the OLC Live afterwards, which I didn't get to watch until last night, which was great. That OLC Live session with you right afterwards was really, really cool. Do you have any thoughts in reflection now that you have it kind of behind you a little bit? I mean, I know there's some things that have continued on, but yeah, I just wanted to ask you about reflecting on the keynote, how it went, all of that.
I was, as you know, people who are really, really close to me knew I was really nervous before this keynote, which I am not always nervous before keynotes, but I am nervous about keynotes in the United States when there's a lot of racial tension. Because even though I've lived in the US, I've lived in the South, I lived in Texas, when I was there, I was clueless. And it was just before Obama got elected, and so there wasn't that much racial tension. I was in a, for some reason, I would go to Rice University in the medical center, and most people were going to vote for Obama, so things were fine. But anything that's related to the United States these days, I'm always worried that I don't get it. I don't understand fully what's going on. I know there's something wrong going on there, and I'm trying to understand it, and I'm worried that to talk about social justice and not talk about that aspect, and at the same time to talk about that aspect and get it wrong. And so I was checking in with a lot of people about my keynote and sending my slides and getting feedback from different folks. And so I was really concerned about that. But then once the keynote was out, I was really comfortable with how that went for the most part. And I was happy to tweet out slides that I hadn't used in the keynote as well and that. The conversation with OLC Live with Nate afterwards, the way people emphasize so much academic integrity online became a big thing for me that I'm trying to think about a lot better now. And so that was a good thing for my own thinking, like I grew in my own thinking about that. But then what ended up happening is that I realized maybe that keynote was not actually the space to address the racial injustice. And then, and you know, Autumn, that we did this inclusive citation, inclusive academia conversation afterwards. And that's sort of the thing that I'm trying to focus on now. Working forward, how do we dismantle unjust academic practices? So that's a sort of a shooting off to something I'm doing with Equity Unbound that has nothing specifically to do with the conference, but sort of made me feel like maybe that's the space where I can be active in that area. If that, I don't know if that really answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's so cool that, you know, some of the things that came up are now continuing in other spaces, in Equity Unbound and in other things that you're a part of. And I think a good conference does that, whether it's online, whether it's face-to-face, whatever, right? It kind of inspires us, and then we take those inspirations back to the projects and the people and the spaces, you know, where we have other connections. So now I'm going to throw the order out the window. I'm just going to open it up for that question. So anybody else, now that whether you were an organizer or a presenter or whatever, was there, what kind of pieces did you take away? What did you, now that you have it, now that we have the power of hindsight, what kind of things stick out to you? What were the powerful points?
The emulation of the human connection. In a virtual setting. And then I want to hear from Regina, because her excitement about the whole thing was infectious. You know what I mean? Like just the excitement of people who were like, I did this thing and it was awesome. Like that just gave my little Grinchy heart sparkles.
Well, the thing about this is, I mean, Maha, if you were nervous, I was like nervous, like times 100. Right? So it's like, mainly because I don't know the audience, right? Like before the pivot online, I was thinking, okay, I really have to work out the audience, you know, in the face-to-face environment. I really have to make it as engaging and as everything as possible. And then now it's online. And so not being able to see the faces of the people as you are talking is, you know, and I've done online presentations before, but it's really different. But as I said in the chat, I felt welcome. And also I'm thinking of how privileged really is face-to-face attendance to a conference is. And right now I feel like guilty, because it's like when I was still in a community college at LCC, so I came from Lansing Community College before I went to MSU, I felt I was privileged. The only reason why I've been able to meet these awesome people is because of the fact that I was physically there in conferences that mattered. I mean, I was like maybe 6 conferences, 7 conferences a year. And looking back, I would not have met these people if I were not there physically. And that in itself is a privilege, because there's a lot of people who do not have that support, that institutional support. And I fought hard to get that as the only woman of color in my library. I fought for that. And so just thinking about how OLC Innovate, this is really kind of like a model for me now in my work. I am also in the steering committee for the Open Ed conference, and we are reimagining this year's conference in November. It's going to be fully online. And a lot of the ideas that we are, thinking of for the online conference would be from the way OLC has done it. And so I was really very happy that I was able to participate in this gathering. And lastly, I was surprised at how much a lot of the people I already know are in this community. Like when Maha told me, oh, you're going to be the keynote. It's like, yay. And Martin, yes, I know Martin. I work with him. And it's like, I mean, all this interconnection beyond my profession of librarianship, I really appreciate. So thank you.
I think there was also a very strong emphasis on equity and inclusion more than usual. I think that's something that Angela co-started at OLC Innovate. And because you work in that area and I work in that area, that's why I think it felt that way. Angela, am I right? It's a recent thing?
Well, actually, it goes back several years, and it's something that Jess Knott and I have tracked the history on. And then when Kate and Maddie joined in on things, it continued to be amplified year after year. So I think for a lot of folks, it feels new, but with anything that happens with any instantiation or initiative, there's a lot of history and a lot of amazing humans that go behind that and do that work. So maybe that's another virtually connecting call where we can talk through that, because we actually all love talking through the history. And there were even a lot of challenges along the way too that we had to address and deal with. And certainly we still do with creating safe spaces to talk about really, really difficult issues. But yeah, no, it's probably, I think we charted it back to about 5 years that this has been going on, if you could believe it, which is almost as long as I've been involved with the org.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe also, I haven't been to an OLC Innovate conference in 3 years or something. Because also you've also done a lot of free stuff that I've participated in, but not the actual, like, so this year you had OLC Ideate, but also last year you had something just before the conference, and I remember speaking at that.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the conversation going as much as possible, and really clue into groups like Virtually Connecting, who, I mean, that's all y'all are about, and we're passionate about the same things. So for a lot of this, I think that we have some great opportunities with folks from all over the globe. I was really touched by the folks who are a part of AMACOL that were at the closing ceremony, which everybody can go back and actually do everything from the conference. The recordings are still there. The escape rooms are still up. Like there's nothing that's held back from you. You can bend space and time. You're all now time travelers as far as I'm concerned, but
decolonizing time.
That's right. We're really trying to, and not just we, the OLC, but like we, our community, are trying to figure out better ways to bring people in from all sorts of areas within the globe. And the AMACOL folks had even said, we would be able to do this if it weren't online in this way. And we're so appreciative. And I mean, that's the stuff that, keeps me going. And, I'll forego sleep anytime and any day for those kinds of connections. So.
I just want to say bye real quick. I got to hop out to a thing.
Bye, Terry.
Bye, Terry.
Oh, and
Bye,
Angela,
Terry.
I took literally a piece away. It came in the mail so quick.
Hey!
Thank you. I wanted
Hold it
to
high. You'll see mine's up there. I got to put the other ones up, but
awesome.
Always
so
in
hard.
the camera view.
It's so hard to get a picture of because
it is.
Anyway,
we do that on purpose.
I wanted to kind of bug Rissa a bit about, because I had to talk about the patch books and even Regina, the ghost patches I like to pick on people about, because I know there's ones in the works that haven't come yet. So I like to, and Rissa's got one of them. Rissa had to jump out too. Anyway, sorry, I gotta go. Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming, Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Bye.
we lost Rissa too. Bye, Rissa, in the async space. We've got about 6 minutes left before we hit the top of the hour. So I'll just open it up for folks to
I want to ask
reflect.
Kate a question. I want to ask Kate a question. I didn't get a chance to attend her session with Jess, but I had heard a lot about Kate before, even though we never met. And I watched it back. And one of the things Autumn and I were talking about just before this session was when folks are first introduced to accessibility and they get overwhelmed, what are your inroads to helping faculty, especially these days, because a lot of them are going to be teaching fully online, so it's not really a choice of how much they need to do. What are your inroads for that? What's your advice?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a good one. So if I'm introducing it in sort of like a presentation sort of space, or a smaller group, honestly, I know it sounds corny, and many of you have seen me do this, but I encourage people to either high five someone next to them if they're physically next to a person, pat themselves on the back, do something to just kind of lower the affective filter in the moment, so that if anyone's feeling some anxiety or a little concerned about like, ooh, this is a new space for me, I'm a little nervous, what if I say the wrong thing, what if I ask a silly question, whatever. So that, just to begin with, to be like, listen, let's create this space where we can be comfortable and we can feel like we can have this engagement. So that's one quick way that I do that. But another way, I talk a lot about, or I've started using this phrase a lot more, is accessible or approachable accessibility. So I avoid using terms like checklists. We're never done with accessibility work, we know that. And so I try to bring that up in a calm way and say, let's talk about how you can begin to dip your toes into this. What are some things you can do that are approachable, that are already things that maybe you do sometimes, but that you could just make part of like your regular sort of approach, for lack of a better word, to making a document, your syllabus, for example. And just kind of get to a space in a conversation where it's like, listen, we are never going to be done with it, and that's just the way it is. But let's get to a space where we can embrace that and understand that we'll do our best whenever we're thinking about it, whenever we're doing that, but that there are resources and there are people out there, so that as you move further into this work, or as you move further into your own work and are trying to figure out how to make accessibility a piece of that, that things will become more and more routine. And then you won't be thinking about some of these approachable things anymore. You might start to think about deeper pedagogical questions. I in the College of Arts and Letters, I work with, of course, arts and humanities, and conversations I'm having with foreign language instructors, for example, is what if I have a deaf student in my course? What am I supposed to do with captions? What language do I do them in? And Maddie and I have had good conversations around that as well. But those are deeper questions that we get into, but don't start there, because then that's when it feels really overwhelming. Let's first start with these more approachable things, and then we can build to that, because you just build up more comfort, I think. Yeah.
I think that's so awesome, Kate. I just started doing some of this type of work at my own institution. And one of the things that I tried to convey is just to sort of normalize a little bit the fact that it is heavy work, that we're talking about sometimes systemic problems that are really difficult to overcome. Even if we're just talking about your own personal work, like realizing that you have 10 hours of video that needs to be captioned, it can be heavy, it can be really, and then of course there's also the, the realization that sometimes we're gonna miss students and sometimes we're gonna leave people out. And so there's a whole portion of this work that feels really heavy, and it's okay for it to feel heavy. And it's about addressing it and trying to find ways around it, but it's not always feel good work. So thank you for that. I think that's really good. Patrice, I know we're right at the end here. We only have about 2 minutes. So if folks need to go, I'm going to invite people to jump off. But Patrice had a great question here about building community. So I want to open it up back to her just really quickly as like kind of a closing thought, because I think Maddie has a follow-up to it too.
Sure, thanks. I have my camera off because my internet is in and out. But I'm lucky to be by the lake in the Adirondacks in New York State, so it's worth shaky internet. But yeah, the question I was asking was around, I've listened to everybody talk about how they've felt so connected to people, in this community during the virtual conference, and how they could feel each other and the humanness, and how, welcoming and open it felt. And I've been thinking about that a lot, not just like within our classrooms, but just across a community of students, and especially where, like we have students coming in who've never been to the campus. And so we're thinking very intentionally about how do we make them feel part of that community. And it really came up yesterday when I was in a focus group with some of our students who were taking a fully online class this summer, and hearing them talk about the loneliness and isolation they feel. And many of them are, in quarantine, in an apartment alone. And they found it really difficult feeling connected, to other students and struggling with how to build relationships. And we're, asking for things like, how are we going to recreate, so to speak, like extracurricular activities and those moments of like hanging out in the library with your peers or bumping, into people in the hallway. And so I do have to hop off for a meeting, but I would love to chat more about all of those things.
Thanks so much for that, Patrice. And Maddie, you said something about in the chat about stuff that's happening in athletics. So, I mean, since we're recording this, I'll go ahead and maybe Patrice can catch this on the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll probably have to hop off. As you might have seen in the chat, I have another meeting, but Angela's going to start that one since we're both in it. But I would 100% love to talk about this more as well if we had if we did have a follow-up or separate conversation at any point. But with respect to athletics, and then I'll also touch briefly on the conference, because this is actually something we thought a lot about this year. And part of why I was hired was to continue to think about these things in meaningful ways. But so I'll start with the conference really quickly, because I think it's really cool that I met people at this conference. And while some, of course, I 100% will echo what everyone else said about missing the face-to-face and what that space afforded. But at the same time, like I actually got to meet Maha. And by meet, I mean, I've been following Maha on Twitter, but it's different than following someone on Twitter and having that space to like hear their sense of humor or the humanity that they bring to a space. And we have since now followed up with direct messages in Twitter. And now I feel like I have a sense where I know Maha at least a little bit more. And that to me was so nice to get out of a virtual conference, that there were people, whether it be in the networking, the social networking events, the game nights, the various spaces that we had, even meditation spaces, where I saw similar faces across every single one of those sessions. And that repetitiveness, that iteration, even of the connecting aspect of it, I think was something that I wouldn't have actually probably gotten at the face-to-face, because I do have a friendship group with many of the folks here, and it would be all too easy for me, because I've missed them, to hang out with them and no one else. So one of the nice things I think actually for me personally with respect to the connecting part is it was not insignificant just to have space to hang out with people and play games, because it was those spaces where I actually started to get to know new people that I had never met before, whether it be in the chat or over the screen. And that's where I'll transition very briefly. And then after this, I'll have to hop off. But within athletics, so prior to joining the OLC, I actually worked as an assistant varsity rowing coach for MSU, Michigan State University, that is. And I had been volunteer coaching prior, and I'll actually be transitioning back to a volunteer coach because I just love the community so much and I love coaching. But we wrestled with this very question, is that here's a community where during the peak of the season, I get to spend 20 hours a week with these athletes at practice alone. That's in addition to any other meetings and other things that we might see. When we go on spring break, my job is essentially a 24/7 job. And except when I'm sleeping, I'm on the job. And if someone woke me up in my hotel room, I would wake up, I'm still on the job. And so with that sense of community that the team had, there was that a rather dramatic shift where we went from seeing each other 3 hours every day, 6 days a week, to not being in physical proximity to each other, and in some cases across the world with our international athletes. So one of the things that we were able to do, and I think athletics is an interesting case because at least at the Division I and NCAA levels, there's actually restricted hours that they've now placed on us that we're not able to hold e-practices. And as an online and digital educator, I was actually really excited about that challenge. Like, oh, I've got whole models in mind for what e-practice could look like. But we weren't able to do that. They actually restricted that capacity within athletics. So what we were able to do were hold things like team meetings. So we picked up on that opportunity and said, okay, well, let's rethink a team meeting. It will be boring and not engaging if we're just on here providing announcements. So let's do icebreakers every single time. Let's play name games. Let's further get to know each other. We have one of the largest rosters in Michigan State, over 80 athletes. And so what's been amazing is that we've even done reflective activities. We've done that intentionally so. And the thing that I wanted to chime in for Patrice, for your sake in particular, if you watch this back, was that recently, one of the other things that athletics does, of course, at this level is recruiting. So one of the things that we've done is open up those team game nights to any interested prospective student athletes. And it has been extremely well received. And one of the things we know that is missing right now from the recruiting context is we would normally be able to host people for visits. They'd be able to come see campus, meet the team. If they were able to stay over in the dorms, have that experience and get a sense of, is this actually a good fit community-wise and academic-wise, not just for the team, but they'd be spending 4+ years there at that institution, right? And they don't have that either, right? So they're missing that. So we said, all right, well, let's find a way to build something new and something different. And it's been fantastic. We've been able to meet people in various recruiting classes and just give them time to get to know each other. So that's one of the things that I think that it's going to be a really fun and unique challenge for us to continue to push on and push those boundaries to think about. I think there are lots of ways that we can continue to build community, even with strangers, because I had that experience at OLC Innovate, and I'm now having that experience within athletics alone. So I know it's possible. And I think it's continuing these conversations to find the strategies for doing that well. But anyway, it was nice to see you all again.
Thanks,
and thank you for the invitation. It's
Thanks so
always
much,
a pleasure
Maddie.
to speak with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so
We'll try to
much.
create another session, I think, to talk about this because it's on a lot of people's minds, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
And maybe we can get people more practical.
Yes, I'd love to. See you all.
Awesome. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. So thank you everybody for coming. And if you're watching this asynchronously, thank you for watching. I'll go ahead and stop the live stream right now, but I will stick around a little bit afterwards if anybody wants to say goodbye.